Folks, it is with a sad heart that this will be the last after show for Star Trek Lower Decks. Yes, the week we have all been dreading now for so many years, and especially for this season, because we've known right from the jump, this isn't being canceled out from underneath. It's not ending on a major cliffhanger, and then they're taking it away from us, and we never find out. No, we've known this whole season this was going to be the final season. And now, friends, we're here. I might cry. My friend, my compadre, the gentleman that's been with me for every one of these after shows, JS, we might get squeeze some tears out of the old fella as well. But this is it, man. It's been a journey. Gut. By the way, guys, just so you're clear, this is the after show. We are talking about season 5, episode 10, the new Next Generation, the final series finale for Star Trek Lower Decks. JS, punched in the gut, glorious ending, something in between, elated, disappointed. What's your initial takeaway from this particular episode?
Very, very mixed feeling about this, and I know it's because this was the series finale. Yeah, it wasn't a bad episode. It was actually a good episode. Okay, so can I just say this?
Yes.
I feel like the episode was shortened a little bit so that we can get that ending piece, right? Which is fine. We needed that. This is the series finale.
Right.
I kind of wish now, looking back on this two-parter series finale.
Both, technically.
Both.
Yep.
I kind of wish now that less time was spent on Will Boimler.
Right.
And more time was spent on the Cerritos, because it feels like last episode was longer than the adventure they had in this episode. And then there was the whole Klingon thing that was just an excuse to add some drama and to bring back Mock, which didn't need to be brought back a third time. And that, there's only that. I wish the episode was a little bit longer so that we could have a longer adventure in this finale than, oh yeah, it's super simple. The only problem is we need to get to it. Well, that's great, but why is it super simple? Like, this is your series finale.
Right.
Like, it should be like the end of the fucking world. Like, oh no, it's super simple. We just need to get close to it. Well, what? And then you had the Klingons to make it harder, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, I get what you're saying too, because it felt disjointed. It didn't feel like part 1 and 2 of the same episode. It felt like two different episodes.
Yeah,
because you literally spent time with two completely different crews on two completely different ships on, really, at the end of the day, two completely different adventures. So, I mean, the tie together was tenuous. They just took the ending from episode 9 and they just tacked it to the beginning of episode 10. And then that became what episode 10 was about. But then, yeah, you had this really weird, lengthy side plot with the Klingons, and then the sister wanting revenge and chasing the brothers. And none of it really, by the way, has any bearing on the rifts, the overall story, what's happening, what their mission is. It just seemed like they wanted to throw as many things as they could at Freeman and watch her try to handle all these different things happening at once. And I don't know why it didn't give us enough time with, like you're saying, with our beloved characters to watch them make this final journey. It just, everything just felt like the whole time. Like, let's see how many things we can kind of fit in here at the end.
To that point, and I know I realize once you get through the bulk of the episode, you realize that the whole point for that Klingon plot, again, is to slow them down. That's all it is, right?
Yes.
It's just to slow them down, to give them a challenge where they can't just go and, oh yeah, we fixed the problem, like no problem, right?
Yep.
Which bears the question, if it was so fucking easy to fix, why didn't they fix it? Why didn't Will fix it? That's the first thing.
I don't know.
Right? Why didn't the Defiant or the Axamandar or whatever the fuck it was called, they have a deflector dish. Why couldn't they fix it? Right? Since it was so simple to fix. That's my first thing. But at the beginning of the episode, it almost felt like the only reason they had those Klingons in there was to show us a fucking Discovery Klingon. Because let's be honest, if there's one show that Star Trek Lower Deck has not really Easter egged at all, is Discovery.
Right.
Right? They really haven't touched on Discovery. And then at the beginning of the show, the Klingons are there, and then the rift comes, and then when the rift hits their ship, it changes. It shows us that it changes your reality to somebody else's reality.
The multiverse, yep.
All the Klingons to the Discovery multicolor bald Klingons. I was like,
as soon as I saw that change into a Discovery Klingon, I'm like, JS is going to lose his fucking mind.
And I didn't mind it. I thought that was fine in the sense that they really haven't had any Discovery Easter eggs at all.
Well,
right?
if you think about it, I think that's meant to be canonical, right? Because so much of what Discovery was wiped from Starfleet records, mostly because of the spore drive and everything else that it did.
Fair
so
enough.
There's a very good chance that none of this crew has a clue that the Discovery even ever existed.
True.
Right? Because it would have been like 80, 90 years ago, because we've determined this is like post-Voyager, post everything else. And of course, originally Discovery was like pre-Enterprise.
110 years prior.
Yeah.
I think it would make it
so
roughly.
I think that's probably why they tried to keep it within canon. Like, we can't kind of poke Discovery because it kind of breaks some of that. Not that the show's ever been like really like hardcore about canon or whatever, but yes, I'm glad that you picked up on that little Easter egg.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. But that's basically how the episode starts, right? The episode starts and the red rift shows up in our space where the Klingon, she's the sister of General...
whatever his name was.
I forget his name, that Mock killed this season, right?
Yep.
She's the sister. And at first I was like, who's her brothers? Is she a Duras? Is this a reference to the Duras brothers? It was not, because then Mock shows up and it's a reference to the brothers that he killed.
That's correct.
Right?
Yes.
So she's their sister. She comes after Mock. She's just looking for a reason to antagonize Starfleet. She's just looking for trouble.
Right. She needs to prove herself because her brothers are both now dead, Starship Captain, and then the guy that was essentially the admiral of the Klingon fleet, at least in that sector. They've both been killed. One of them honorably, one of them super not. So now she's in the hind end of space. I don't know why, if she's being punished, she's in the hind end of space. She's 3 birds of prey that are escorts with her, and then she has a giant, what just looks like a big, huge bird of prey.
Yeah. She has a bird of prey that's like 5 times the size of the other ones. And it was like, what?
I know they have different ships, and I know they, for budget reasons, they only ever really show a bird of prey because it's just easy to keep getting that model out and redoing it. But I know classically they have other ships in their fleet type of thing. I think actually Tana says it like they're all based on giant fucking birds or whatever she says. But if there was one thing I could have about this episode, I would just have excised the entirety of the whole Klingon. And I even get kind of like, well, we had an episode earlier about it and we kind of left it at a certain point, so we kind of have to wrap that up. Cool, wrap it up at episode 7 or 8. Don't wait until the finale for some weirdo. It just felt so badly out of place for the whole rest of the episode. And then even then, there were still little bits of it that and by the way, guys, this whole thing is not going to be just us complaining about the episode. There was plenty about the episode that I absolutely adored and loved.
Oh, yeah.
But also Rutherford being weirdly negative the whole time. Only at the very end sort of rediscovers his love for the Cerritos. But there's no lead up as to why all of a sudden he doesn't love it anymore and why he's super frustrated with it. I know it's kind of supposed to have been based on his attachment or whatever, his organic or cybernetics acting up or whatever. But it just seems so like you spent 5 years making this guy like a Labrador retriever of the show. That's why him and Tendi work so well. Don't get me started on him and Tendi. And then for the almost the entirety of the final episode, you just make him a raging asshole the whole time. Why? I
also didn't get that. The whole him falling out of love with the Cerritos and everything being harder and nothing working the way he wants, and is like, where is this all coming from?
I
Why
don't know.
All out of the blue in the last episode, are you starting this whole new thread?
I don't know. It was very weird. And my assumption would be, from a writer's perspective, they had to find some way to get the attachment off of him in some way.
So spoiler alert, guys, if you have not seen this episode, this is the big spoiler, I think, for this episode, is by the end, Rutherford is no longer cybernetic.
Yeah, and it's not like he still has the notch on his one eyebrow, which was the other eyebrow anyways, but he's just Rutherford now. Like his whole face, like
no
obviously
more
Tana put
cyborg.
him, and there's no indication that there was ever been some sort of a cybernetic enhancement on him.
The implant's gone.
The implant is gone. Thank you. Implant's the word I've been looking for the whole time. So yeah, so from a writer's perspective, I get they wanted to end the show without him having the implant. And this allowed them to do that by having it malfunction and making him hate the Cerritos and everything else. In fact, he falls back in love and is able to do what he has to do to fix it by literally pulling it off of his face, like disconnecting it and then doing what he's got to do. I just felt like there was a bunch of different ways they could have done it so that he would have to get rid of the implant. Having him just be an asshole for the whole episode was so wildly out of character. And then you have Tendi and Talin.
About that.
Sorry, go ahead
for a quick second. I feel like if for the only way this really would have worked is if there was a setup at the beginning of the season,
right?
Or if it was an whole season, there's
that's what I mean. If there's an arc throughout, not just all of a sudden in the last episode, he's like, this stupid thing, I hate everything. Oh, wait, it's this. Take it off. I'm beautiful. Done. Roll credits. Yeah, it was all to yeah. Even then, take out the Klingon subplot and then focus more on this. And sure, it'll only be in one episode, but there'll still be more build up in time so that the payoff doesn't seem like such a weird thing about it, right? Like my guy, I don't know. Other than we do get to see some cool reconfigurations of the Cerritos. It ends up turning into a whole bunch of different ships, some of which are massive Easter eggs. It turns into a Galaxy class. It turns into a Sovereign class. It turns into a Miranda class, like the Reliant. It turns into an Oberth class. It just turns into so many different styles of starship. They make jokes about the one warp nacelle.
How can we go to warp with one nacelle? And then Tendi's like, technically, you can still create a warp bubble with one of them. Like, shut up.
Like, we don't have time for your mumbo jumbo right now.
I don't have time for your nerding out here.
Yeah, you're nerding out. That's perfect. So it still had a lot of that, and especially what I thought was funny, which I thought was a kick in the pants to Worf. If you go back and you watch Star Trek: The Next Generation, I don't know if it was that prevalent on DS9, but every single time there's a situation on the Enterprise on The Next Generation, and Worf wants to solve it with violence of any nature, it's automatically no. Every single time he suggests raising the shields, firing phasers, firing torpedoes, doing whatever, Picard's response is every single time no. And so the Cerritos ends up turning into a Terran Cerritos, and Shax is looking down at this thing and he's like, the weapons on this thing are insane. Klingons are on their back, shooting them immediately, and immediately the weapons go offline, and he's like, and it just felt like such a Worf moment. Like Worf would finally get a chance to use these impressive weapons and shoot somebody, since every time he's asked it's no, and then the weapons go offline immediately. I was like, all right, okay, you got me back, Cerritos, you're good. But overall, I mean, the rift opened and then they closed it. It was cool. There was a couple of key moments. Obviously, there's a ridiculous misunderstanding. Apparently, the one Klingon captain doesn't know the difference between universes, multiverses, timelines, shifting, whatever it is. Boimler's stolen data pad comes up early on in the episode. What's the captain's name? What's the Klingon captain's name? Mock has seen it on the screen to say, oh, no, Beckett Mariner is the one that hid my brother here on the ship somewhere. Newsflash, the two Klingons end up seeking asylum on the ship. One of them hides immediately. Nobody can find this guy. They're ordered by Starfleet to give the Klingons up. We find out later that Starfleet order from Freeman's admiral husband was a fake.
It was all a fake.
Yes, regardless. One of them gets hidden and we can't find him. Boimler immediately goes to his stolen cool Boimler pad and says, I wonder if the other Boimlers ever faced something like this. By the way, while he's watering a dolphin in cetacean operations. Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. That was amazing. All the cetacean stuff is fantastic. And they decide, oh yes, the other Boimler had the same thing. And yeah, someone did hide the brother, and it was Mariner, but Becky Mariner, that Mariner, and boy, she was a piece of work. Well, Mock decides that, well, no, the pad is about now, this reality, what's currently happening. And clearly Mariner said my brother, and we have to find him because we have to die with honor, and we've already fled one battle, and we can't fled another. And then Boimler snaps the pad. So the pad's been a thing the whole season long.
And now it's gone.
Even though he's still cool Boimler. He's done almost everything, by the way. I'd like to point out he ends the show with the beard.
He does. And they even make a point of saying, I can't believe you living somebody else's life has actually turned out so well for you.
Made you cool. Like, you're legitimately cool. You're legitimately doing well. And I think it's important, too. There is a moment in this particular episode, too, where they talk about I think she's talking to Ransom. Oh, yes, at the very end. So, guys, just spoilers. And I know we're kind of bouncing around all over the place, but that's what this was going to be. I took no notes. I just lived this episode as it happened.
This episode was a bit of a bouncing all over the place type of episode anyway.
The rift ends up not being fully closed, but now it's a stable rift that will lead to other multiversal dimensions that's just going to be open. It messes with stuff, though. So they have to put a starbase near it that's a much older design that has much older parts on it. Cue Starbase 80, which was an episode before. But they need someone to command Starbase 80 that has not only proven themselves in this type of situations, but is familiar with the rifts as it is. It ends up being our beloved Captain Freeman. So she is now commanding Starbase 80 with her Admiral husband, and they're going to run the task force. They're going to explore these multiverses. And our boy Jack Ransom gets promoted to captain, even though he was clearly one of the most inept first officers in the fleet. His officer style was fall asleep and they'll figure it out. This guy's captaining the Cerritos now, kids. And he's decided he's going to pit Boimler and Mariner against each other for the first officer position on the ship.
And Boimler's like, "What do you mean? We're lower deckers. Like we can't be."
I think is it? I thought it was Mariner that said, "No, wait, we're lower deckers." He's like, "No,
like,
you're
not
in
lower
charge
deckers.
of the lower deckers now."
Yeah, he's
so
like,
kind of what we talked about,
like,
right?
Maybe I'll promote one of you guys. So come and have a seat.
So we get the sense, and even earlier in the episode, when they go to the captain with the message that Boimler gets from William to say, "Oh, this thing is coming and we have to deal with it," the captain's immediately like, "Yep, we're going to do it." And they're like, "Wait, what?
Wait, what? We thought it'd
And
take
she
a whole lot
literally
more
said,
convincing."
"You guys are among my best officers," and they're like, "What?" So
like,
I think the writers made a distinct effort to make sure that by the end of this, that we did experience that growth. We did get to see these officers. I think they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. We want to see these officers, these ensigns go from shitty, do nothing, don't care, slacker lower deckers with no ambition and nothing to do, but just keep doing the bare minimum
trash and
and then just shepherding them all along to a point where they're making a difference on this ship that's now been catapulted to a very prominent spot in Starfleet. They're no longer going to be on the fringes of doing that. It's not going to be a second contact ship anymore, right?
They actually make a reference to that when they're like, you know what? Thank you for the information. And they're like, and then Ransom's like, okay, good. I mean, now you can send like a real ship to go. And they're like, well, unfortunately.
Well, don't they say the Enterprise? They literally like, we'll just get the Enterprise.
They go, fortunately, you guys are going to have to go. And they're like, wait, what? Like, can't the Enterprise take care of this?
Yeah.
Like, get a much better ship like the Enterprise take care of this?
They're like, nope, the Boimlers are somehow connected, so we have to make sure that he goes, which, by the way, the Boimlers are connected. Do you think in this final episode we get to see or any interactions? I shouldn't say. We get a very brief glimpse of him at the very end.
At the end, that's it.
The crew of the Axamander is referenced at the very end, gets nothing in this episode of any kind whatsoever. Now, I know our main crew wasn't really in the last episode either, and I think that's why I was saying earlier, these two didn't feel like two parts of the same episode. Mm-hmm. This is not, guys, the best of both worlds. Parts 1 and 2. That's not what you're getting. You're getting two very distinct episodes that have an overall narrative tie-in, but feel like very, very much two distinct, different episodes. So,
where Best of Both Worlds, where every single Next Gen season finale was a true 2-hour episode that was split into two, this did not feel like that. It did not feel like a 2-hour episode that was split into two. It was just 2 episodes. Right, the whole to be continued thing was just a ploy.
Literally, like I said, they just plucked the ending from 9 and they just tacked it onto the beginning of 10, and they made it what was supposed to be the major plot element of 10, but then they introduced this weird Klingon brother thing, chased sisters. Because as soon as the Klingons came on the screen initially, like Edge of Klingon Space, and it showed a bird of prey, I'm like, oh, this could get it. I wonder what this is going to be about. And then it turns out it was shit.
Yeah,
so I guess they can't all be bangers and winners, but as far as like a finale goes, I'm not lying to you. I kind of felt like you. I don't know if it necessarily be longer, but it definitely need to be more focused on our guys and the journey that they were making to get to the end of this 5-year arc.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like that kind of got robbed away from them a little bit.
It did. All of a sudden, they're all superstars and superheroes, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
they were just losers 2 weeks ago. Like, what's going on here,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So that was a little bit weird. I did appreciate that they did exactly what we said they would do, right? That they would end the show no longer Lower Deckers, right? Hence the new Next Generation, right? Mariner also made a comment that this isn't the end. This is just the beginning.
So this is what I find fascinating about this this multiversal rift that is no longer a rift. It's just essentially a portal, an open portal to the multiverse. And this whole show ends saying we're going to conduct missions into the rift if there's a way to bring our kids into the live action in some way, which, by the way, could also be why Rutherford's implant was removed so that the actor wouldn't have to have this goddamn implant on his face the whole time. This would, to me, be the way to do it. We've already shown, spoilers for anybody that hasn't watched Strange New Worlds, that the rift can happen, that elements from this universe can end up in a real life breathing universe, as we saw when Boimler and Mariner end up over on SNW through going through a portal that probably looks pretty similar to the giant fucking one that's open in space now. Is this going to lead to something? I don't know. Like what? So we've talked about the episode. I think we both agree it had elements that we loved. It had elements that we didn't. But what do we feel realistically would be a future for our now middle deckers, upper deckers, this cast and crew?
I think the reality of it is that there is no future, and we may somehow, some way in a future Trek get a reference to the Cerritos or to Mariner or whatever, right? Like any other versions of Star Trek, we might get cameos and stuff like that. But as far as this specific crew, we're not getting a Picard out of this. I'd be very surprised. Now, do I want that? Fucking right. Do I want that? Of course I want another show based on this. Yes. This was the best Star Trek show we've had in fucking years.
Yeah.
This was the most Trek show of all Trek shows we've had since Next Generation.
I've not seen anybody that's watching this show that's been like, yeah, I'm good to move on now. Like I think 5 seasons is good. We should go ahead and move on now. I did see an interesting piece, and I don't know if I brought this up on a previous after show, talking about what you and I have talked about on our main show, the Geek Boutique podcast, guys, every Thursday at 7:00 right here on YouTube Live and also on Facebook through the Geeks and Company Facebook channel or YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe. Nailed it. They talked about how streaming shows have a shorter shelf life, not just because in large part because they're more expensive or whatever, but a streaming show is meant to do one thing: attract new subscribers. And they understand that holding on to subscribers is also important, but a show will max out on how long it will hold those subscribers for. And it will stop generating new subscribers. And apparently some people have done the algorithms and figured out 3 to 5 seasons. Anything more than 5 seasons, it starts to be diminishing returns as far as those go. And so that's why a lot of these shows in the streaming services are just capping out at 5 seasons and nothing. There are some exceptions, don't get me wrong, but by and large, they feel like they're not drawing anybody new in by the time a show hits a 5th season. So at that point, they don't feel it's worthwhile to be plunking money into it anymore. You, as a viewer, you've gotten your 5 seasons of the show. You've gotten your 50 episodes. You seem happy, even though it's leaving. You got to have your 5 seasons. So from all of that perspective, I get it. But fuck you, Paramount. This is one of the best shows you put out ever. There's not a Trekkie on the planet that is watching the show that doesn't love the piss out of it. And you've decided to get rid of it. And it's 10 episodes. They're 20 minutes. It's animated. How expensive can this show really be to produce?
And that's the key, right? Is it's not even an hour per episode, 10 episodes a season. It's not 10 hours of high special effects and fucking,
Stabil, costumes to make, makeup to do, alien stuff, wigs, CGI, none of that.
None of it, right? It's a 20-minute freaking animated show. In 10 episodes, we maybe got 3 hours worth of fucking content. Like, how expensive can this show possibly be?
There's no way. There's no way. It has to be among the cheapest shows they make. I will bet you Prodigy costs more than this show costs to make. I would put money on Prodigy because it was all
Maybe.
CG on this, whereas a lot of this was the classic style animation, which I'm sure is mostly still done with computers, but it's not as
Mhm.
it's flat. It's not 3 dimensions like with Prodigy is. But
Mhm.
yeah, guys. I mean, again, there's still campaigns going on out there to save the show. I mean, at this point, I agree with JS. Unfortunately, I think we will get some references, and I think there's a good chance we are going to get some type of a cameo in some way, shape. I don't think it makes sense if they're going to leave this giant multiversal portal open at the end and say flat out we're going to be exploring. It would make sense if some of these characters end up popping up on other things from time to time. We have Starfleet Academy coming up. We have the Section 31 show coming up. I'm sure there's going to be other shows that are going to get greenlit that are going to be happening too. Star Trek is not going to die all of a sudden. But god damn, it feels like this show could have gone on another 5 seasons and still been just as banger every time.
I feel like the writers though did a great job of leaving that door open.
Agreed.
Right? You know, now this rift is a whole new thing, right? With not Mariner. Fuck.
Freeman?
The name of the captain, Freeman, being the captain of now the Starbase. That's right there.
Yep.
We also know that Tawny Newson is working on a live action sitcom based in Star Trek world. She's been very vocal that she wants to try to bring in all her co-stars back for this sitcom.
Why wouldn't you?
So is this all somehow going to maybe intertwine in this new show? Fuck, I would love that.
Who wouldn't?
Am I going to hold my breath? No.
Tough,
But
right?
man, if we had a live action show that is based off of Starbase 80,
sure,
where we get missions to alternate realities, and then without necessarily having our crew of lower deckers, we get to see other versions of our lower deckers in different. That would be even
100%. Because then you could even recast, or you could guest star, or you can cameo, you could do a whole bunch of things.
Axamandar is now here.
That's all I'm saying.
Right? The Axamandar is now here with a multiverse crew. Like, you incorporate that into that show. I mean, there's so much that they can do. I think the problem they're going to have is some of these actors are now becoming big names.
Jack Quaid in particular. Jack Quaid is going to be a real, it's easy to get him on a voiceover type role. He can go into a closet by himself, record all his lines in an hour, and then leave and collect a paycheck. It's way less time commitment than going to a live action show, because he's just doing so much right now. A lot of the other people on the show are character actors that do have other roles and other things, but Jack Quaid is becoming a legitimate A-list star, especially on television. Now, mind you, some of his commitments are coming to an end as well, right? It's the final season of The Boys is coming up.
True.
Right. So that may free him up, but that may be happening because he's moving on to other things too. Like, who knows, right? He's a very hot property right now. So
yeah,
and he's already doing other voiceover work as well. I mentioned the adventures of My Adventures with Superman. He voices Clark Kent Superman on that show as well. Well, that's like the starring role. That's not a bit part that he can just walk into every now and then and record and walk out. So,
Tawny Newson's claim to fame right now was Space Force, which I think was canceled after season 2. I don't know that it's coming back.
I didn't even know it got a season 2, to be perfectly honest with you.
It did get a season 2, but I don't think it's coming back for season 3.
Right.
Rutherford, what's his name again? He's on that firefighter sitcom, which I think is now over.
I mean, I've seen that actor, whose name I also escapes me right now. I've seen him in so many different things. Again, never the star, but in a supporting role.
Roles.
Literally been in a million different things.
I
don't
know.
And of course, Jerry O'Connell is the guy playing, Ransom or whatever.
He's Ransom, but again,
he's
what's he got
busy,
on, right?
Like, so I don't know. I would love to see it. Will it happen? I don't know. Remember when Picard season 3 ended and we all screamed for Legacy to the tops of the mountains, to the bottoms of the
river? That's still in development.
And nothing's happened. I've heard it's not even that. I've heard it's nothing. So Terry Matalas has already moved on. He's going to be doing another show completely that's got nothing to do with Star Trek. So, I mean, can they recapture the magic with a Legacy show? I don't know. But from what I've gathered and what I've seen, there's nothing moving on that front whatsoever. They're focusing on Academy and getting the Section 31 movie done. So I don't know, man. Guys, if you want the show to get sold, I don't know if Paramount's even going to try to shop it around. The best way to do that, watch the show. Go right back to episode 1. watch the whole darn thing again. Get yourself on Paramount Plus. Watch the show. Let them know that this is something that you love and that you want to see more of. As JS mentioned, the cast is like till the end of time. We'll do this.
Yeah.
No problem. The commitment is so small for them, but the
Yeah.
enjoyment obviously is so huge, and they've clearly had a bond with each other as well as far as that goes. So. Anything else you want to say about this finale, JS, that we didn't cathartically get out from this episode?
No, I think that's basically it. It's a sad day in the world of Star Trek, if you ask me.
It really is.
Not only was this the best Star Trek show we've had in a long time, but it only got 5 seasons and 5 seasons.
10 episodes of 22-minute episodes per season. That's the dagger in the heart. There's just not that much content at the end.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably binge watch through all 5 seasons of this show in a weekend.
100% you could.
Right?
Yeah. Now that it's all out, 100%.
Yeah.
And by the way, I encourage you to do so, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely going to be doing a rewatch. There's no question there. I encourage you guys to do the same and see how the show itself has even progressed over the course of it. And maybe once you binge the entire thing, maybe that finale will seem a little bit more on point. Just, right now I love the ending. Loved how everybody kind of moved on to their own thing. There's even one final glory shot, which they should have probably gone out on, where they're all on the turbo. The 5 are all on the turbo lift, and they're kind of like shot up a little bit, and they're all like, they look very, very pose. Cool. 100%. And I was like, all right. I can finally say goodbye. And now I'm going to go and crack a beer and cry myself to sleep tonight. So guys, if you've got any comments about this episode, if you want to take umbrage with anything we talked about, maybe you love the Klingon subplot. I don't know. Go ahead and put it down in the comments below.
Nobody loved the Klingon subplot.
Did you feel like it was like one big continuous episode? Or did you feel like us, where it felt like just 2 completely separate episodes that they just tenuously tied together so it would be a 2-parter? Let us know your thoughts and feelings. And are you ready to let it go? Or would you like to see more happen down the road with our beloved crew of the USS Doritos? Normally, I think we would say stay geeky, everyone. But I think for this episode, we might have to change it up a little bit. JS, guys, Cerritos strong.
Live long and prosper, everybody. Can't see you guys next week.
No, that's it.
This is it.
We're done.
This is it.
The show's over.
Make sure to go check out the Geek PD podcast live 7 p.m. Eastern time every Thursday night right here on the YouTubes. See you guys then.
Cerritos strong, baby.